What's good, y'all? It's your boy Ross back at it again with another video. So we're gonna check out wrestlers who forgot the planned finish of a match. Now, this is not something that happens all of the time. It's a situation that may happen every now and then where a wrestler may have forgotten what the finish was. So sometimes either the ref or the referee would kind of let them know what the finish is by, usually the referee is listening to whatever the producers or whoever's in Gorilla, they're listening to them talk about maybe when the next commercial break is going to happen or whatever the case. Maybe they have to call it audible, whatever the case may be. So if the wrestler does forget, they'll try to communicate with the referee like, hey, what's the finish of the match? Sometimes it happens. Sometimes you have a lapse in judgment. Sometimes you just forget. And we're going to check out some of these rare moments where a wrestler was like, I don't know the finish. What's the finish, guys? Can someone tell me the finish? Sometimes they even ask their opponent, hey, what's the finish of the match? I forgot. In a, slick way of doing it. They're not going to outwardly say, hey, what's the finish of the match? So it's one of those things. It's a live situation, live storytelling. Anything can happen. Let's get right into this, man.
For Ricochet! There's a 3 count! I want to see an official decision.
Wrestlers who forgot the planned finish of a match. Number 1, Alberto Del Rio versus
weird.
Randy Orton, Hell in a Cell 2012. One of the top matches on the undercard for the Hell in a Cell event in 2012 was Alberto Del Rio versus Randy Orton. Fans expected a great match out of the two of the best in-ring workers WWE had to show, and whilst the match was going great, the finish completely derailed the momentum of the match, and the quality suffered as a result. During the final few minutes of the match, Del Rio went to the top rope, but Del Rio did this with a confused look on his face, and it was clear that he had no idea what the planned finish was supposed to be. In an awkward botch, Del Rio would then jump down, and then Del Rio and Orton proceeded to have a very bizarre botch sequence where both men were completely lost. The closing moments of the match were thankfully smooth as Del Rio and Orton quickly got it together, and it showed the importance of remembering spots in the match, particularly the match finish. Number 2,
my man just jumped out. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. Oh man, but once again, it happens. You just gotta be able to recover real, fairly quickly.
Orton versus John Cena versus Kofi Kingston, Raw 2010. The pay-per-view match in 2012 wasn't the only time in which Randy Orton had been in a match where his opponent forgot the match, as in 2010, Orton competed against Kofi Kingston and John Cena on Raw, and it resulted in one of the most infamous botches in Raw history. In the match, the finish went completely wrong. Kingston was supposed to be pinned following a punt kick, however Kingston got up early, meaning that Orton had to go off script and use an RKO. Orton, who had established anger management issues at the time, went on a huge tirade, and he notoriously called Kingston stupid in the middle of the ring.
Kofi Kingston, jaw and face planted!
Orton drew so much attention to Kingston forgetting the finish that fans were fully aware that Kingston had messed up. If Orton had just managed to remain professional, then there wouldn't have been much fanfare, and Orton and Kingston would have quickly improvised a new finish. But this unfortunate botch led to WWE cancelling Kingston's push indefinitely, and this real-life incident would be even cited when the two would embark on a main event feud in 2019.
I just wish they would have really expounded upon that, because it was a real-life situation that caused the derailment of Kofi Kingston's push earlier in his career. So it's unfortunate, but I just think they had the right pieces to make this feud really work when Kofi Kingston was the WWE champion. But I think, for me personally, even though they showed a little bit more of Kofi's serious side, I wanted to see more of that, because you're the WWE champion. Yes, you can have positivity and all this other stuff, but you need to be serious more, especially when someone that was the reason that he derailed your push in the, earlier in your career. I think they had some pieces and they had the elements of it. It just didn't land as well as I think a lot of us wanted it to. It was still an okay feud. It was nice to go back down memory lane, but it didn't really land. To be honest with you, his entire WWE title reign didn't land as much as we wanted it to. So it's just one of those unfortunate things.
Number 3, Samoa Joe versus Sting, Victory Road 2009. No matter how experienced wrestlers are, nobody is immune to forgetting the match finish.
Yeah.
In 2009, TNA presented their annual Victory Road pay-per-view, and one of the most anticipated matches on the card was Samoa Joe versus Sting. This was the match in which Sting somehow forgot the finish completely. During the match, Joe attempted to get Sting up onto the top turnbuckle to set up the Muscle Buster finisher, but Sting wasn't cooperating. After this weird moment of Sting not knowing the planned finish, Joe called an audible and put Sting in the Coquina clutch, and the match would come to an end. It was apparent during the final moments that Sting and Joe were communicating, so it was likely the case that Sting simply forgot the planned finish, and Joe did his best to move the match along without too much attention being drawn to the mishap. Number 4, the New Day and Mark Henry versus the Usos and the Dudley Boys, Raw 2016. A table matches in pro wrestling can often be chaotic, and in 2016, Biggie managed to forget his planned involvement in the match finish.
Biggie's
The February 8th, 2016 edition of Raw featured an all-star tables match as the New Day and Mark Henry took on the Usos and the Dudley Boys. The finish of the match was supposed to see Biggie take a 3D through a table, however before this spot could even go down, Biggie had already rolled out of the ring to sell. Bubba Ray would then shout E with the hopes of getting the attention of the former WWE champion, and Biggie would insert himself back into the action, and the match would come to a close. Bubba Ray handled this extremely well as he would shout it out loud enough for Biggie to hear, but not too loud that it would be so obvious to the audience that one half of the Dudley Boys was trying to communicate with his opponent. Number 5, Melina vs Mickie James vs Victoria, WWE House Show 2007. Whilst live events aren't usually recorded or canon, they do sometimes feature title changes. These title changes are rare, and in 2007, one occurred accidentally after Victoria forgot the planned finish to the match. In a match between the aforementioned Victoria, Melina, and Mickie James for the women's title, the referee counted to 3 after a pin attempt from James on Victoria, and this actually resulted in James winning the women's title.
Oh wow.
The WWE could have pretended that this was a mistake or blunder, but thankfully they didn't, which certainly gave some credibility to the house show format. Due to WWE having no creative plans for James as champion at the time, they would book another match between Melina and James on the same show, and Melina would then get the title back.
Oh, okay. Because I think with house shows is a little bit different. Obviously, you want to have that unpredictability factor, but it wasn't televised. Because I know for a fact, if it was televised, they wouldn't have called it straight. Most times, especially a championship match, they're not going to call it straight, even if the wrestler forgets to kick out. Like, we've seen it. Even just this past year, certain people were supposed to kick out, like the whole Damian Priest and Seth Rollins thing and stuff like that. You know, where some person's supposed to kick out, but was it Seth Rollins? No, I think it was Seth Rollins. Yeah, Damian Priest, Seth Rollins, and then the whole Drew McIntyre coming into the mix or whatnot, and he was supposed to kick out, but he didn't kick out, Damian Priest. It happens. Sometimes people get concussed. Sometimes, they forget to finish, and usually the ref has to somehow pretend not to count the 3 or whatever the case is. So it's very rare in a championship situation, especially if it's not on a house show, that they're not going to force the ref somehow to not count the 3, even though it looks like they should count the 3, because they're not going to actually have them call it straight, because that would fuck up some plans. So it's easier to get away with it on a house show, pretty much what I'm saying.
James would discuss the incident on the Ring the Bell podcast, and this is what the wrestling legend had to say. What happened in Paris? I don't know if I should speak because there were 3 parts. 4 parts to this match including the referee, 5 if we include Ricky Steamboat. It was obviously a triple threat match and Melina was the champion. Victoria was out there and I made the cover and the 3 count happened. It was like the championship was not heard around the world. It is in the history books though, because I demanded it. If this happened in today's WWE, then it would quickly be the talk of social media.
Oh,
it would be interesting to see how WWE would handle it in front of a modern day audience.
Yeah.
Number 6, Cody Rhodes, Ted DiBiase and Wade Barrett versus Daniel Bryan, Ezekiel Jackson and Sin Cara, SmackDown 2011. In a 6-man tag match, it's of the utmost importance that each wrestler knows their planned spot, and it's vital that they tag in and out at the correct time. Unfortunately, during a 6-man tag match on SmackDown in 2011, Sin Cara forgot the finish, and when he mistakenly tagged in Daniel Bryan, the match fell apart. During the in-ring action between Bryan and Ted DiBiase Jr., Bryan randomly pinned DiBiase after the referee counted the 3. This was total chaos, as everyone in the match looked completely lost. This is a match that Cody Rhodes will go on to call his worst match ever, and it's easy to see why WWE's resident top star holds the match in such low regard. Number 7, The Miz and John Morrison versus Matt Hardy and Mark Henry, ECW TV 2008. One of the talking points when it came to the WWE in the summer 2008 related to The Miz. During a tag match on ECW, The Miz, who was teaming with John Morrison to take on Matt Hardy and Mark Henry, was supposed to break up a pin attempt. This was designed to be a part of the closing moments of the match, yet when The Miz forgot his spot, the referee counted to 3 and awarded the match to Hardy and Mark Henry. This was painfully awkward to watch, as it was evident that The Miz had messed up. Instead of reprimanding The Miz, WWE made the controversial call to fire the referee for the match, Wes Adams.
Which is kind of wild. I was just talking about it. It rarely does happen. The ref stops it some reason, some way. They stop the pinfall, or they'll 1, 2, and then 2 count, even though he never got his shoulder up. But in this situation, they fired him. He called it straight. Because the guy didn't kick out, and he ends up getting fired. But he called it straight. So that's a tough decision. Because it used to be, from what I know, back in the day, before, a lot of people even knew that all of it was a work. It used to be, if something happens and he don't kick out, you call it straight. Even if he's not supposed to win, the referee would call it straight. All right, well, he didn't kick out. I have to call it. People are watching. Now it's it's a little bit different, but that's kind of crazy, bro. He ended up getting fired for doing his job because someone else messed up the spot.
Executive call received a ton of criticism, and it was a case of Vince McMahon needing someone to blame, and with him being high on The Miz at the time, the blame fell unfairly on Adams.
That's cold.
Number 8, Becky Lynch versus Dana Brooke versus Charlotte Flair versus Emma, NXT TV 2015. And before the inaugural NXT TakeOver Brooklyn show, WWE would deliver a fatal 4-way between Becky Lynch, Dana Brooke, Charlotte Flair, and Emma. When the match was over, all anyone could focus on was a huge botch by Lynch, who somehow forgot the match finish and was pinned by Emma as a result.
Oh yeah.
According to Lynch in her book, she assumed the planned spot was to have Brooke break up the pinfall attempt. Lynch legitimately believed that Vince McMahon would fire her, but luckily, McMahon's main concern was checking that Lynch was okay. And number 9, Bret Hart versus the British Bulldog at SummerSlam 1992. Bret Hart is one of the greatest wrestlers to ever lace up a pair of boots, and his elite level performance at SummerSlam 1992 was a testament to this. Hart took on the British Bulldog for the Intercontinental title, and due to the Bulldog being in a less than stellar condition, Hart had to literally talk Bulldog through the entire match. Hart would discuss this in his autobiography, and according to Hart, Bulldog had been smoking an illegal substance the night before. When I arrived in London, hundreds of fans poured out of the hotel lobby to chant my name in the streets. I set out to find Davey, but he was off somewhere with Diana and his family. I didn't see him until the required entrance rehearsal at Wembley Stadium the night before the show. When I asked him why he hadn't returned my calls all summer, he wasn't able to look me in the eye. He fessed up that he'd been smoking crack with Jim for weeks and was now terrified. He'd gone back to being that same helpless kid I rescued from Dynamite 10 years earlier. Hart would then state that during the match, Bulldog had to openly admit that he couldn't remember any spots. So Hart assured Bulldog that he would carry the entire match.
That's
Bret,
insane.
I'm left. Davey panted as I had him clamped in a side headlock. I can't remember anything. Davey, just listen to me. I'll carry you. The fact that the match turned out so well is a testament to Hart, as a lot of top wrestlers would have fallen apart under these difficult circumstances. But Hart prided himself on being a ring general, and it was certainly on display in the 92 Classic. But there you have it, folks.
That's really crazy when you think about it, bro. My man legitimately carried him through that match. And I remember, I think I may have checked out a video talking about how he was kind of just out of there. But the fact that he legitimately carried that entire match. And, it's a lot of people's favorite matches, favorite match of all time, favorite SummerSlam match of all time. A lot of fans love this particular match. And the fact that, fans remember it fondly, only to know that Bret Hart carried the entire match because my man, British Bulldog, was out of it. Just done. But even he was able to hide it really well out there. That's really impressive. That's crazy. This is why they say Bret Hart's one of the greatest, if not the greatest wrestler of all time, because to be able to carry someone that's out of their mind, high and strung out in a wrestling match, it's different when some people, they're just not as good yet. So you got, there's one wrestler that carries majority of the match, but they're still able to do something. When the other wrestler don't remember the finish, don't remember the spots, nothing, And you got to carry all of that, walk them through all of that live in front of thousands and damn near millions of people. Insanity. But comment down below. Let me know some other wrestling videos y'all want me to check out. Appreciate all love support. Road to 150K. Appreciate y'all kicking with me. See you on the next one. Peace.